back to the greatest shir of Kuntres Umaayan of all time, besides for some other shirim. And we're going to be doing Maamer Hey Perek base. And today we're going to figure out what we were saying yesterday with two things. We had two questions yesterday. That number one, why does it say that some people are thirsty and some people are full? It says the idol worshippers, Goyim, are full, and the Jewish people are thirsty. And number two, we were trying to figure out why someone just wants to go in the ways of their heart and thinks everything's going to go well for them. But that we're not actually going to find out today. We're going to have to wait for tomorrow. Fine, you ready for this? And we're getting down and dirty into creation. Because yesterday we spoke about how Hashem is creating everything just with a little offshoot, with a ray, with an expression, with his name. What's a name? A name is a way you present yourself to others. You go over to someone, Menachem, how do you present yourself? Someone's like, hey, what's your name? What do you say? Crikey. I doubt that. Probably say, I'm Menachem. You don't need the name Menachem to express to the outside, just like Hashem is expressing to the outside with what's called a name. You ready? Perek base. We're seeing the source of creating the world. It's only a tiny little ray or offshoot of a expression of Hashem. And originally this little ray from Hashem was included in its source. We see this in Perek that what until the world was created, it was Hashem and his name alone. What does it mean, Hashem and his name alone? Sounds like a bit strange, but now that we figured out that a name means the way you express yourself to the outside, now it makes perfect sense. Obviously, before Hashem created the world, there was no expression to the outside because there was no outside. Rather, Hashem's expression to the outside was included and one with him. Imagine like the sun, which has expression to the outside as sun rays, yeah? Now imagine the rays were still inside the sun because there was no outside to shine to. This is the level of name. You want to call it a name, you want to call it a ray, whatever your name for expression to the outside is. The way it's still included in Hashem's essence, in his infinite light, before the world was created. So Hashem's light, energy, ray, name, all the different names for it, his expression to the outside was still included in himself before the world was created. What happens afterwards? After creating the world, now there's the outside to shine to. Then this light ray, this shine, this energy went to the outside. It was so-called separated from Hashem, not literally separated. It's going to the outside as opposed to just being included in one inside of him. It's now expressing outside, just like the sun is now shining into the world. And therefore, this ha'ara is constantly in a way of Ratzoi. What's Ratzoi? It says in Yechezkel. You guys ever read Yechezkel Perek Aleph? You have to read it. It's like quoted in nearly every Maamer Chassidus, or maybe not nearly every Maamer, but very many Maamer Chassidus. And it's a really cool Perek because it talks all about Yechezkel's vision of how he saw angels and the chariot and the heavens, and he saw Hashem. Yep, it's called Ma'aseh Merkava. You won't really understand very much of it by reading it inside, but you should definitely do it because we reference a lot in Chassidus. So it says over there, and certain type of angels, they were advancing and retreating. You know what advancing and retreating means? It's like a bacher who runs to get to Seder on time, but 5 minutes in, he has to take a bathroom break for the rest of the Seder. No, I'm kidding. What's a chayes rotzev v'shoiv, advancing and retreating? They're constantly trying to get closer to Hashem, and then they get sent back down on their mission. Rotzev v'shoiv is, rotzev is I want to get closer to Hashem. Shoiv is return, that I have a mission to do in this world, to get back down to it. That's why it says in the Zohar, when your heart runs, return to one. That when you have a rotzah, you're running, you're going so excited to connect to Hashem, you have to return to the point of one, return to realizing that you have a mission in this world, to make everything one with Hashem. Liyos, ki cheftzas shukaksa, l'kol ba'arin seif makari v'sharsha. So Hashem's light, ray, shine, name, expression, Hashem's expression, Hashem's name, Hashem's light, Hashem's, what other words do we have for it? Hashem's shining to the outside, that energy that goes to the outside always wants to come back and be included with Hashem because that's where it came from. Why does it want to get included where it came from? We're going to talk about everything actually wants to be re-included with what it came from. And we're going to give a mashal to this. So don't lose track of the goal. The whole time we're talking about how Hashem's name, Hashem's expression to the outside, is always trying to get back to its source. I'd like to first give a mashal of this. I have a bacher who goes off to yeshiva, and the whole time in yeshiva is just waiting. I can't wait till we have Shabbos off. Then I can finally go back home. What are you going to do at home? I'm going to sleep in my own bed. Okay, very nice. And your own bed at home, maybe it's better than yeshiva's bed, maybe it's not. It doesn't make a difference to him because home is where he came from, and he wants to return there because that's where his safe space is. Wow, I don't like that expression. That's where he's comfortable. That's where he is himself. So let's find out in Rebbe Rashab's words. Just like the nature of everything, to be constantly striving, wanting to return to its source. So, just like this, you have everything. It's constantly trying to return to its source. For example, fire. Does anyone here have a lighter? So, if someone here had a lighter, of course no one does, but if someone did, you would see fire. It always wants to go upwards, to its source, the element of fire. So it speaks about in the Kabbalah how, and also you can see it, like let's say in the Rambam, for example, it speaks about the 4 elements: fire, wind, water, and earth. That each one of them is stacked on top of each other. So you have the element of fire. Its spiritual element is considered outside of the world, above and beyond. It says, the quote of the Zohar is, under the moon. Then you have air, which is like the atmosphere, which is above the earth. Then you have water, which water is more dense and below the atmosphere, but it's on top of earth, and then below that you have earth. So fire is always trying to return to its spiritual source. That's why it's always going upwards. Now that we figured out fire is always going upwards, we're going to see another interesting thing about fire. And therefore, bilti shemen psilo, without having oil or a wick or shari dvarim hamachazkim or anything else that holds down the fire, you can't hold down the fire at all. So you think the reason you have to have a wick is to make the fire come up from nothing. No. The fire is always trying to go back to its source. As soon as it runs out of fuel, the fuel isn't making the fire here. Spiritually speaking, this fuel is holding the fire back from returning to its source and just disappearing from the world. So now that we talked about that you need fuel to hold down the fire and stop it going to the source, what about while it's here? While the fire is here, you'll notice something very interesting. If you ever sit there watching the menorah burning late at night when you're in a small hut on the side of the forest in a snowstorm with the bandits and the wolves coming knocking at your door, then you'll notice something very interesting about fire. Even when the fire is held down through oil and through a wick, it's constantly going up and down. It's flickering. It's going higher and lower. So what do we see from this? It's trying to return to its source, and then it's being held back down. Trying to return to its source, being held back down. Yeah? I was once a shliach in the yeshiva in Masifta over here, and there was a bacher who every day came to yeshiva and went home 5 times. Unbelievable. He came to yeshiva in the morning, then after Shachris went home for breakfast, then came back to yeshiva to learn Iyun. By recess he went back home, then he came back to yeshiva for the continuation of Iyun, then by lunch he went home, then he came for supper, then he went back home, then he came for night seder, then went back home. That's like Rotzi V'Shoy. He's constantly coming and going, coming and going. He needs to be in yeshiva, but he wants to be at home. Needs to be in yeshiva, wants to be at home. Fine, so you see that with fire also. It's so too with Hashem's shining, Hashem's ray, the energy that gives life to the world. Since it's just a shine, it's just a ray, therefore it's constantly in a way of rotzoy, of wanting. Since it's a little offshoot from Hashem, it always wants to go back to its source. That's why it's called thirsty. It's constantly thirsty to go up above. Thirsty, not as in literally thirsty. It means just like someone thirsty desperately wants the water, this part of Hashem that's on shlichus down in this world, dying to go back to its source. Like it says, in order that I could sing, it says in Tehillim, in order that I could sing of your glory and not be quiet. So, what does it say in the Zohar about this? It says like this, you ready? You know what that means? It means that the lower Nahira, you know what Nahira means? I used to think it means rivers. It's a big problem. It does not mean rivers. But the lower light is constantly calling to the higher light, and it's never quiet. So you have this lower flame, just like the flame that we were talking about in physically, so too spiritually you have the lower flames always trying to get to the higher flame. Just like physically, the physical fire is trying to get to a spiritual source. Also Hashem's flame, light, his radiance is always trying to get to the higher light, the higher flame, and it is never silent. So what does this have to do with us? You ready? Because we were talking about how a person's neshama, Knesset Yisrael, is what level? Someone help me out. What level do we say Knesset Yisrael is last year? Think. Which level comes down into the world? What's Hashem's expression? Malchus. Thank you. Beautiful. So Jewish souls come from Malchus. Malchus is like Hashem's name. It's the one that comes down into the world. It's Hashem's expression to the outside. So here's the thing. If your soul comes from is an expression of Hashem, an expression of Hashem always wants to go back and connect with Him, then what does your soul always want to do? Anyone know? Exactly. Go back up to Hashem. So, this is why we said the thirsty. Remember our quote we said yesterday from the Pasuk, the full ones and the thirsty ones. So that Rebbe is going to break up this word, hatzmeya, the thirsty, with a hey and then smeya. That the hey is thirsty. Why? Because Malchus is the last hey of Shem Havaya. You guys ready for some Kabbalah? We spoke so far about Hashem's name, or you want to call it His ray, or His radiance, or His expression, or His energy. These in Kabbalah is called Malchus. That's the level of Hashem that's expressing to the outside. It's also called speech. And speech is represented by a hey. For a few reasons, speech is represented by a hey. Number one, because any word you say, like the video we watched earlier, any word you say starts off with a hey. It was just a simple, when you breathe, starts off with a breath, and then, by the way you move your mouth, you change that breath into different letters, right? Also, a hey represents speech, because hey is gematria 5, and there's 5 parts of your mouth that you make letters with. Who knows the 5 parts of your mouth? Tongue, that's 1. Teeth. Palate. Okay, we got 3. Lips, 4. Throat, beautiful. There we go. We got all 5. So, the hey, the last hey of Hashem's name, Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey, each one represents something different. Yud represents Chachma. Hey represents Bina. The Vav represents the 6 Midas. And the last Hey represents Malchus, which is speech that goes to the outside. Speech is the way you express yourself to the outside. So your neshama is part of Hashem's expression to the outside. And the expression always wants to come back and be one with Him. About this it says in the Medrash, you ready for this? Bihibaram. When it says that Hashem created them, right? Parshas Bereishis. You guys ever learned Parshas Bereishis? So then it says Bihibaram. So what does it say about Bihibaram? Behei Baram. Splits up the pasuk with a hey. He created them because the whole world, all existence, is created with a hey, which is Hashem's expression, Hashem's speech. Hine ois hey zeh tzmeya. So this ois hey, Hashem's expression, which is your soul, that is thirsty. He writes it once, mishtoikekes, and is dying for Talmud, constantly lachzer la'ayin, to return to the state of nothingness, the place where nothing and everything is the same, to be one with Hashem, l'kol b'shar shechol, and to be one in its source. Now that we figured out that your soul, which comes from Hashem's hey, which comes from Malchus, is thirsty to return to Hashem, and we're going to find out what it says about this in Yirmiyah. About this it says, my words not like fire. This is what we were talking about. Just like the nature of fire, to go up above, Canal, like we spoke about, so to the word of Hashem, which says about that the word of Hashem, which is the Hey, with that He created the world, who wrote to constantly wants to go up above. So now, what have we learned so far? Before we get to the punchline of this ois, that we learned that Hashem's expression, the Hey, is the Hey and the Malchus Hashem's expression is your neshama that comes down to the world. And we learned that it constantly wants to get back up to Hashem. Now that we learned all that, let's find out the next piece, which is going to be the punchline. Let's talk about the difference between Hashem's speech and our speech. You ready for this? The letter Hey above. It's not God forbid like a person's speech. Anybody rotzing. It doesn't have any will behind it. Because if you think about it, you know what happens when a person speaks? Words can be empty. You know when someone says, oh, that's just empty words? The letters down here, they're silent. They're empty. They're doimim literally means something that's the Rebbe doesn't like the term inanimate. The Rebbe uses the word silent because it's things that don't have any expression. It's like mineral world, things like rocks, things that have no life, no visible life behind them. So words here can be absolutely empty. You could say lots of words from today to tomorrow. The words by themselves don't have any will. They don't have any wisdom. You know what words have? They can express your will and wisdom, but the words themselves can be absolutely nothing. You can have someone saying a speech off a paper and just speaking like he's falling asleep. No will, no wisdom behind it. You know what words do down here? They are just vessels to invest some koyach into them. So when you're angry, you can say some words, hey, stop that, with anger, and then those words now have a personality of anger. Or you can say with love, like someone's like, hey, you're the best guy ever, I love you so much. You're like, hey, stop that. So now you're expressing love with the same words, because the words themselves don't have any personality behind them. But what about by Hashem? But above, you can never say that, God forbid. Speech above by Hashem. The letters have will, they have wisdom, they're very, very highly intelligent beings. Share, because Midibra Elyon, from Hashem's words, it creates all creations, including the highest level of creation, which is the wisdom in Gan Eden. What's going on here? This Hashem, and then in creation there's three worlds: Bria, Yitzira, Asiya. We live at the bottom of Asiya. So the world of Bria is the world with Malachim, with Gan Eden going on. There's different Gan Eden of different levels. There's a lot going on over there, and the highest heights of creation is the level of Chachma, the top of the top, the wisdom of the world of Bria. Now, how does that exist? Because Malchus Atzilus nasa atik lebria, because Malchus Atzilus becomes atik to Bria. Okay, we're going to have to explain that sentence for a second. Atzilus is one with Hashem. The lowest level of Atzilus is Malchus, which we spoke about is Hashem's speech. Just like myself, I'm a person, I have a lot of feelings, I have a lot of thoughts, but then the lowest of my internal system is when I speak, because there I'm revealing what's on the inside to the outside. It's nothing new, it's just revealing to the outside. So to Hashem's Malchus, Menachem, you know what happens when Hashem's Malchus? Hashem's taking whatever level it is. It's Hashem's wisdom, Hashem's will, Hashem's chesed, or gvura, and then it's expressing it to the outside. And you know what's the top of the outside? Is, in Bria, is Atik. What does Atik mean? Atik is the highest level of Keser. Keser is a crown. You know why Keser is called a crown? Because a crown sits on top of your head. Keser, the idea of Keser is that it's what's above you, what's beyond you. It's what you look up to. It's your role model. What you wish you were but could never be. That's what Keser is. So, the lowest level of Atzilus, the lowest level of part of Hashem, is expressed and becomes the highest level and the above and beyond of the world below it. Let me give you a mashal of this. Imagine you guys go to a shir of Rabbi Yoel Khan, yeah? And Rabbi Yoel is like, oh, okay, we've got some younger bochum here today. I'm going to give such a simple shir, the easiest shir I've ever given in my life, yeah? But then, that shir, he's going to try to make everything very low level. But guess what? His shir, for someone listening like me, wow, that's the most brilliant thing I've ever heard in my life. I wish I could understand that better. Because the lowest level of expression for him becomes above and beyond for me. So now that we figured that out, that the letters, the speech, the expression of Hashem, which is the lowest level, becomes the source of life, the source of wisdom, will, kindness, and severity, whatever it is, in the next world, we must see that Hashem's words, Hashem's speech, Hashem's letters have life to them, have wisdom and will in them, because they create that. This Medrash, you ready for a bunch of different sources about how Hashem's letters have a whole personality. It says, it says in the Medrash that the letters came to give testimony. Well, you can't give testimony unless you're intelligent. This is a Zoyar. You ready for a Zoyar one? Akdama says Zoyar. It says in Akdama of Zoyar, the letters came to create through them the world. So we see that the letters is what the world's created through, and the world includes lots of wisdom and will and chachma and binah and whatever you have in the world. All of it is included in the letters. Thomas Tikkunei Zoyar. You ready for the introduction to Tikkunei Zoyar? The at the end, so it says, "V'maskilim izaru." On the pasuk that says, "The wise ones shall be careful." You know who the wise ones are? You think it's these wise men in white robes meditating on top of a mountaintop in Nepal. No. It says in the Zoyar, "Iloin inu asvan." These are the letters. If you guys want to know what the Aramaic means, here's a good one. These are the letters. The Havaloin Seichel, that they have wisdom. La'ala Kodam Malka, to come before the king. Kol Chad al Tikkunei Chulu, each one in its correct position. So we see again that the letters are intelligent. Perish, Bekise, Nikro, Oisias Maskilim, Ayin Sham. So, therefore, the letters are called wise because each one, the Kisei Melech is a sefer. And that explains that this is why the letters are called intelligent. So, now that we figured out that the letters are very intelligent, what do we say in this paragraph? That letters have will, have wisdom. That's how they create will and wisdom. Therefore, you ready for the last point? And we're going to talk about how the hey turns into a yud. You ready for this? Loch and Shaykh Loimer. Therefore, because the letters are so intelligent, and because the letters, you ever seen like a declaration by like the mayor, like they make for the Rebbe's birthday? Like, whereas the Rebbe encouraged all people to live in a good and kind and God-fearing way, and whereas this, so, whereas all letters are intelligent, and whereas all letters are what Hashem made the world with, and whereas they are Hashem's expressions, therefore they always want to connect back to Hashem. Therefore it's possible to say hey, the letter hey. It always wants to go up and go up to its source. That's why it says in the Zohar. You ready for a big piece of Zohar? So it says in the Zohar, at the time that she, which means the Shechina, which means the letter Hey, which means Malchus, is in great love. Who's the Shechina in great love with? With Hashem. That because it has so much love of Hashem that it's not able to handle it. As Eira Skarme Biziru Sagi. It makes itself very, very small until nothing's seen of it. Rather, it shines as one tiny dot. Umahu, and what is that? Yud, that's the Yud. V'hainu, meaning Shemei Hey Nasa Yud. From the Hey, it becomes a Yud. The Yud and the Yud, that's when it becomes one with the infinite, with the nothingness, with the place where all and nothing are the same. So what does it mean the Hey becomes a Yud? Yeah, Hillel, this is your question. The Hey is Hashem's expression, Hashem's speech, Hashem's expression to the outside. Just like Hey, there's 5 parts of your mouth. Hey is the source of every letter. So Hashem's speech is the most outer thing. Your speech is not where you do your feelings and your thinkings. It's just expressing your feelings and thinkings, right? It's the most external part of yourself. That Hey, when it comes to the outside, it becomes a Yud for the next guy. So let's say I'm trying to understand you. You're like expressing to me how you love Hashem and His Torah so much. I'm trying to understand that. So your Hey is just the lowest part of you expressing to the outside. And that for me is the Yud. That's the point. That's the idea. That's the most pure and thing that I'm trying, if only could understand that. A bit like if you go to a shir of, I don't know, who's a big Talmud Chacham? Moshe Feinstein, beautiful. Moshe Feinstein is giving an amazing halacha shir. And for him, he's speaking to the outside. He's expressing his thoughts in the most basic way he can. That's a hey. It's speech. And for all the students, that becomes a yud for them. The yud is a little point that I wish I could reach that. That's the atik. That's what I wish I can get to. Kitzer, you ready for this in short? Until the world was created, it was Hashem and His name alone. It's the source of the worlds and Ibrahim and creations, all included in this source. Everything was within Hashem. Therefore, afterwards, when Hashem revealed His energy and His life force, His expression, His name, to create things, all these things are constantly trying to get back to their source. Like the fire. The nature of fire is what? Is to go up. This is what it means. It's thirsty. The letter Hey is thirsty. The letter Hey means the expression of Hashem that's always thirsting to get back to its source. Now, how can a letter be trying to get back to its source, or trying or wanting anything? Because we said Hashem's letters, they have will and they have a lot of wisdom. So, what comes all out of this? That your soul is always trying to get back to its source, to Hashem. So,